A shocking case unfolded in the glamorous city of Los Angeles. Gloria Rose, a young and ambitious woman, had stepped into the dazzling world of the wealthy, unaware that she would become the victim of a ruthless murder plot. On a fateful night, her car plunged off a cliff, seemingly just a tragic traffic accident. However, the dark truth behind the accident gradually came to light. What really happened that night? Let's dive into the details of this case. Robert Young was born into a life of privilege, the heir to a family whose fortune was built on oil in the early 20th century. From a young age, he was meticulously groomed to inherit and expand the family business, attending elite schools and mingling with the offspring of other wealthy dynasties. But Robert's ambitions went beyond simply safeguarding his inheritance. He craved to establish an empire of his own. At just 25, freshly graduated from Harvard Business School, Robert made his first bold move in real estate by purchasing a dilapidated apartment building in Los Angeles. While others saw decay, Robert saw untapped potential. He renovated, raised rents, and swiftly flipped the property for a significant profit. This strategy became his trademark, and over the next 30 years, he transformed Young Real Estate into one of the most formidable development firms on the West Coast. His sharp business instincts were equaled only by his ruthless methods. Robert earned a reputation for his cutthroat tactics, often securing deals by pressuring small property owners with offers they couldn't refuse, or covert threats. Employees both feared and admired him, understanding that he demanded absolute excellence. As his wealth multiplied, so did his thirst for extravagance. Robert amassed rare wines, flaunted luxury cars, and split his time between a mansion in Bel Air and a Malibu beachfront estate. Yet, as he approached his 60s, the trappings of success failed to fill the void in his personal life. His first marriage to Edna Wright ended in a bitter divorce after a decade, with Edna blaming his obsessive work habits and emotional distance. His second marriage to model Letitia Taylor lasted less than 2 years, ending in another expensive separation. Disillusioned, Robert gave up on marriage altogether, opting instead to court a series of younger women who were drawn to his wealth and power. During this phase of his life, Robert stumbled upon the world of sugar dating, a revelation that seemed tailor-made for his desires. In this realm, he found the perfect balance. Beautiful young women who offered companionship and intimacy in return for financial security. Robert cycled through numerous sugar babies, always keeping them at arm's length, using his wealth as a tool to maintain control. But as his 60th birthday loomed, the toll of his years weighed heavily on him. Staring at his reflection, he saw a man who had amassed everything he ever desired professionally, yet found himself profoundly alone. He yearned for something more, a connection that could rekindle his youth. It was in this vulnerable state that Robert Young first encountered Gloria Rose. Young, striking and brimming with ambition, she captivated him immediately. He knew in that instant he had to possess her. But what Robert didn't foresee was that his pursuit of Gloria would ignite a series of events that would unravel his life and forever stain the young name he had spent decades building. Gloria Rose's journey was far from the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles. Raised in the modest town of Oakdale by a struggling single mother, Gloria learned from an early age that life could be both unfair and unforgiving. Her mother, a waitress barely scraping by, did her best to provide, but the absence of Gloria's father, who vanished before she was born, left a permanent void in her heart. As Gloria grew older, she watched her mother fall into one failed relationship after another, each man gradually chipping away at her spirit. Despite the chaos at home, Gloria thrived at school. She was intelligent, charming, and had a flair for performance, often stealing the spotlight in school plays. Her teachers saw greatness in her, urging her to aim high and pursue college. However, as graduation neared, the harsh reality set in. There was no money, no savings, no safety net. Determined to break free from the cycle of poverty, Gloria made a daring choice. With nothing but a backpack and the small savings from her part-time job at the local theater, she boarded a bus bound for Los Angeles, her head full of dreams. But the City of Angels was far less kind than she had anticipated. She quickly realized that she was just one among thousands of hopeful young women, all vying for the same elusive opportunities. Gloria Rose had always believed in chasing her dreams, no matter how elusive they seemed. Moving from her small hometown of Oakdale to the sprawling city of Los Angeles, She was determined to make it big. The promise of stardom in the City of Angels glimmered in her mind as she Ruby herself landing a breakout role. But as reality set in, Gloria's optimism began to fade. Like many others who had come to LA with stars in their eyes, Gloria soon realized that the road to success was filled with obstacles. Her part-time job as a waitress barely paid enough to cover the rent for the cramped studio apartment she shared with two other aspiring actresses. The days stretched into weeks, then into months, and the auditions that had once seemed like stepping stones to fame became exercises in rejection. Her optimism, once so vibrant, now dimmed with every closed door. She was on the verge of giving up and returning to Oakdale when fate intervened. One evening at the upscale restaurant where she worked, Gloria found herself serving a table of young women who exuded wealth and confidence. Their laughter was infectious, their clothes designer, and their lives seemed worlds apart from Gloria's struggles. As she cleared their plates, she couldn't help but overhear snippets of their conversation. They spoke of arrangements, luxurious gifts, and lavish trips provided by their daddies. Intrigued by their glamorous lives, Gloria lingered at their table. After her shift, she gathered the courage to approach one of the women, a striking brunette named Mercy. With a sly smile, Mercy introduced Gloria to the concept of sugar dating, a world where wealthy older men provided financial support to young, attractive women in exchange for companionship and intimacy. Gloria was initially reluctant. The idea of relying on a man for financial security felt too close to the life her mother had lived, a cycle of dependence and disappointment. Her mother, a waitress in their small town, had struggled to make ends meet, relying on a string of relationships with men who took more than they gave. Gloria had promised herself she would never fall into that same trap. But Mercy's world was different. She spoke of luxury apartments, designer clothes, and five-star vacations. There was no desperation in her tone, only confidence and control. Slowly, Gloria's reservations began to erode. Mercy explained that being a sugar baby wasn't about giving up control. It was about seizing opportunities. After all, these men weren't looking for love. They wanted companionship, someone to share their wealth with in return for time and affection. With a mix of curiosity and desperation, Gloria decided to give it a try. Mercy helped her create a profile on an exclusive sugar dating website. Gloria carefully selected her most flattering photos, crafting a witty and charming bio. She wasn't sure what to expect, but within days, her inbox was flooded with messages from potential sugar daddies. Among the countless offers, one invitation stood out. A wealthy businessman named Robert Young invited her to be his guest at a high-profile charity gala. Robert Young was a name Gloria had heard before, though only in passing. He was a powerful figure in real estate, a man whose wealth and influence reached every corner of Los Angeles. Accepting his invitation felt like stepping into a different world, a world she had only dreamed of. Little did she know that saying yes to Robert Young would set her on a path that would not only alter the course of her life, but lead to tragedy. On the night of the gala, Gloria stepped into the glittering ballroom, her nerves barely contained beneath the borrowed gown she wore. The chandeliers sparkled above, and the jewels of LA's elite dazzled all around her. As she scanned the room, she spotted him, a distinguished older man making his way toward her with purpose. "Robert Young, I presume?" Gloria's voice trembled slightly as she extended her hand. Robert's grip was firm, his confidence palpable. "The pleasure is all mine, Miss Rose," he replied, his voice smooth and commanding. He placed a gentle hand on the small of her back and guided her into the ballroom. Gloria felt a shiver run down her spine. She couldn't tell whether it was from excitement or apprehension. As the night unfolded, Gloria found herself entranced by Robert. He was charming, intelligent, and surprisingly attentive to her aspirations. When she shared her struggles in breaking into acting, his eyes lit up. "I have connections in the industry," he said. "Perhaps I could introduce you to a few people." By the end of the night, Gloria's mind was swirling with possibilities, not just from the champagne, but from the opportunities Robert seemed to offer. When he invited her to dinner the next evening, she accepted without a second thought. Their relationship progressed with a dizzying speed. Robert showered her with gifts, extravagant, indulgent gifts that Gloria had never rubied. Just 1 week after they met, he handed her the keys to a luxurious apartment in West Hollywood. "You need a proper place to live if you're going to pursue your career," Robert said with a confident smile. Gloria could hardly believe her eyes as she stepped into the sunlit rooms of her new home. The closet was already filled with designer clothes, and a sleek sports car was parked in her designated spot. Robert's black American Express card even found its way into her wallet, reserved for emergencies. It felt like a dream. Robert had become her fairy godfather, granting her every wish. But dreams can have dark undertones, and Gloria was soon to discover the price of Robert's generosity. Each lavish gift, each favor came with invisible strings attached, strings that slowly tightened around her, binding her to him in ways she hadn't anticipated. As their relationship deepened, Robert began to exert more control over her life. He dictated her schedule, insisting she be available at his beck and call. He questioned her friendships, particularly with other men, hiding his jealousy behind thinly veiled concerns for her reputation. At first, Gloria brushed off these red flags, telling herself that this was simply the price of living in luxury. But as time went on, the weight of Robert's control grew heavier. Gloria had entered into the world of sugar dating, hoping to escape her financial woes, but now she found herself trapped in a gilded cage. What had started as a fairy tale was quickly turning into something far darker. The invisible strings Robert had used to control her were tightening, and soon they would pull her into a dangerous game from which there was no easy escape. Robert began to dictate her schedule, insisting she'd be available whenever he called. He questioned her friendships, particularly with young men, his jealousy thinly veiled behind concerns for her reputation. Gloria Rose was swept up in the whirlwind of her new life, intoxicated by the luxury and grateful for Robert Young's support. Any early signs of control, jealousy, or possessiveness were easy to dismiss. After all, she was living what felt like a dream. For the first few months, Robert seemed like a benefactor, opening doors in the entertainment industry she had never thought possible. He introduced her to influential figures, sponsored her acting classes at the prestigious Theatre and Film Institute, and indulged her every desire. Their first major trip together was to Paris. For a girl who had never left the United States, the experience was surreal. They stayed in the royal suite at the Ritz, and every moment felt like something out of a movie. Strolling along the Seine, Robert presented Gloria with a Cartier love bracelet, carefully locking it around her wrist. "This is a symbol of our connection," he said softly, his gaze intense. "I hope you'll never take it off." The gift was beautiful, but its meaning, binding and possessive, was something Gloria would only come to understand later. From Paris they jetted off to the Maldives, where they spent days lounging in an overwater bungalow. Gloria was in awe of the turquoise waters and the vibrant fish gliding beneath their glass floor. Evenings were spent dining on fresh seafood while Robert regaled her with tales of his business successes. She became increasingly enchanted by his world of power and high-stakes deals, captivated by the influence he wielded. Back in Los Angeles, Gloria's metamorphosis continued. The small-town girl from Oregon disappeared, replaced by a polished, glamorous young woman who now turned heads everywhere she went. Robert took great pride in her transformation, delighting in showcasing her at industry events. "My Gloria," he'd introduce her, always with a possessive tone. For Gloria, the attention was as addictive as the luxury. She found herself seeking Robert's approval more and more, and his validation became essential. When he was pleased with her, Gloria felt on top of the world. When he was disappointed, however, the weight of his disapproval was crushing. As time passed, the lines between financial support and emotional control began to blur. Robert had become more than just a benefactor. He was her anchor in this new life, the one who shaped her world. His influence was everywhere, in her career, her social life, even her identity. At first, Gloria believed she was merely enjoying the spoils of success, but in reality, she had unwittingly traded her independence for a gilded cage. The fairy tale, once so magical, was slowly revealing its darker side. Robert's gifts, his affection and his support came at a price, one that Gloria wasn't fully aware of until it was too late. Each moment of indulgence, each step deeper into his world, tightened the invisible chains that bound her to him. When Gloria landed her first small role in a television series, the first person she thought to call was Robert. She craved his approval, desperate to hear his praise. In her mind, his validation had become intertwined with her sense of success. Robert, on the other hand, was becoming increasingly possessive of Gloria, He revelled in her youth, beauty, and the energy she brought into his life, feeling a renewed sense of vigour whenever he was around her. Obsessed with maintaining this feeling, he began to shift his priorities, cancelling important meetings to spend more time with her. Surprise lunch dates, spontaneous shopping sprees, everything became about keeping Gloria close. In the early days of their relationship, Gloria felt a mix of nervous excitement and fascination with Robert. His maturity, confidence, and experienced touch thrilled her, and their first intimate moments were a blend of awkwardness and passion. Robert took the lead, and Gloria, despite their considerable age difference, found herself responding in ways she hadn't expected. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and as their relationship deepened, so did their physical connection. Robert took great pride in pleasing her, lavishing her with attention both in and out of the bedroom. He used his affection as a way to keep her close, showering her with indulgence as though it were a performance of power and control. For Gloria, the intimacy was complicated. On one hand, she found genuine pleasure in their physical relationship, but on the other, she was acutely aware that it was part of a larger arrangement, one built on financial dependency and the unspoken understanding that she was to fulfill Robert's desires. Doubts about their dynamic started creeping into her mind, but she couldn't fully dismiss the attraction and connection they shared. It was this contradiction that kept her tethered, even as the strings began to tighten. As time passed, Gloria's feelings of gratitude for all that Robert had done for her slowly morphed into feelings of suffocation. His constant presence, his insistent demands on her time, and his growing need for reassurance began to weigh heavily on her. She longed for moments of space and independence, but every time she tried to pull away, Robert was there, always attentive, always hovering. His outward displays of generosity masked a deeper insecurity, a growing fear that Gloria, with all her youth and beauty, would eventually find someone younger and leave him behind. What neither of them realized was that their relationship had already entered dangerous waters. The honeymoon phase was fading, and beneath the surface tension was quietly building. Robert's possessiveness and Gloria's desire for freedom were on a collision course. The storm clouds were gathering, and neither of them was prepared for the emotional tempest that was about to break. As summer gave way to fall, subtle shifts began to alter the dynamic between Gloria and Robert. The initial thrill of their relationship, once filled with excitement and novelty, gradually began to wane. What had once felt exhilarating was now slipping into a predictable routine. Gloria especially felt the weight of monotony creeping in. Her acting career, which she had hoped would take off with Robert's industry connections, was progressing at a sluggish pace. While she had managed to land a few auditions following her small television role, nothing significant had materialized. As the weeks passed, whispers about her being a sugar baby began to follow her in casting circles, and Gloria found herself questioning whether her association with Robert was actually a hindrance rather than a help. One crisp October morning, tired of her stagnant career and the weight of her doubts, Gloria decided to break the routine. She treated herself to breakfast at a trendy cafe in West Hollywood. The ambience was lively, filled with chatter and clinking coffee cups. As she sipped her latte, she caught the eye of a young man seated at the table next to her. He smiled, and before long they were engaged in conversation. His name was Victor Lewis, a 22-year-old film student with a passion for cinema that matched Gloria's own. His charm was effortless, his energy refreshing, and Gloria found herself drawn in. Hours slipped away as they discussed everything from film theory to their personal aspirations. For the first time in months, Gloria felt a genuine spark of connection, one that wasn't tied to financial arrangements or expectations. Victor saw her as an equal, not as an accessory or project to mold. When he asked for her number, Gloria hesitated for only a moment before giving it to him, reasoning that it was simply networking. However, over the next few weeks, Gloria found herself drawn deeper into her conversations with Victor. What started as casual texting evolved into frequent coffee dates and drinks. Each time they met, Gloria told herself it was harmless, a friendship, nothing more. But deep down she knew that she was walking a dangerous line. The excitement of something new, combined with the contrast between Victor's youthful passion and Robert's calculated presence, made it difficult to maintain the facade of innocence. Robert, on the other hand, was far from oblivious. He noticed the small changes in Gloria, her growing distraction, the way she became more protective of her phone, and the vague excuses for her absences. His past experiences, particularly in his previous marriages, had given him a keen sense for recognizing when a partner's attention was drifting. His jealousy, which had always lingered beneath the surface, now began to bubble up uncontrollably. The relationship that had once made him feel powerful and rejuvenated was now the source of deepening insecurity. Gloria's restless spirit, coupled with Robert's growing suspicion, was leading them both toward an inevitable confrontation. Unbeknownst to either, the storm was already brewing, threatening to unravel everything they had built. One evening, as they dined at Robert's mansion, he confronted her. "Who is he?" Robert's voice was calm, but his eyes were cold. Gloria, caught off guard, stammered a denial, but Robert pressed on. "Don't lie to me, Gloria. I've seen the way you've been acting. Remember everything I've done for you." The argument that followed was their worst yet. Gloria, feeling cornered, lashed out, accusing Robert of treating her like a possession. Robert, his composure cracking, reminded her of her humble beginnings, and implied she would be nothing without him. In the days that followed, an uneasy truce settled over them. Robert redoubled his efforts to keep Gloria close, surprise gifts appearing daily, impromptu trips planned, but Gloria felt increasingly trapped. The luxury that had once thrilled her now felt like a gilded cage. It was during this tumultuous time that Gloria made a fateful decision. After another heated argument with Robert, she called Victor. Hearing his voice, warm and free from judgment, Gloria broke down. She confessed everything, her arrangement with Robert, her growing unhappiness, her fear of leaving. Victor listened patiently, then made a suggestion that would change everything. "Leave him. Come stay with me. We'll figure it out together." As Gloria hung up the phone, she felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. She knew what she had to do, but she had no idea of the deadly consequences her decision would set in motion. An investigation that would unravel the dark secrets behind her accident and expose the deadly obsession of one of LA's most powerful men. Detective Ruby Perrin arrived at the scene as the first rays of sunlight were breaking through the morning mist. Perry was a rising star in the LAPD, known for her keen eye and relentless pursuit of the truth. As she surveyed the crash site, something nagged at her instincts. The skid marks on the road, the damage to the guardrail. It all seemed too neat, too perfect for a simple accident. Her suspicions deepened when she learned the identity of the victim. Gloria Rose, miraculously still alive but in critical condition, was no stranger to the gossip columns. Her relationship with Robert Young had been fodder for tabloids for months. Now, with Gloria fighting for her life, Perry couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. The detective's first stop was the hospital. Though Gloria was in a medically induced coma, the doctors provided crucial information. The pattern of her injuries, they said, was inconsistent with a simple car crash. There were defensive wounds on her arms, suggesting a struggle had taken place after the initial impact. Perry's next move was to interview Victor Lewis, the last person known to have spoken with Gloria. The young film student was distraught, blaming himself for not accompanying her on the drive. He revealed Gloria's fears about Robert, her concerns that he might try to harm her career after she left him. Armed with this information, Perry turned her attention to Robert Young. The mogul presented a calm facade when questioned, expressing shock and sadness at Gloria's accident. But Perry noticed the way his hands clenched, the flicker of something dark behind his eyes when he spoke Gloria's name. As the investigation progressed, Perry and her team uncovered a trail of evidence. Cell phone records placed Robert near Mulholland Drive on the night of the crash, despite his claim of being home all evening. Financial records revealed a large, unexplained withdrawal from one of his offshore accounts days before the incident. But the real break in the case came from an unexpected source. A small-time drug dealer, arrested in an unrelated case, offered information in exchange for leniency. He claimed to have overheard a conversation in a bar about a hit ordered by a wealthy man on his younger girlfriend. The description he provided of the supposed hitman matched that of Drake Morgan, a name known to law enforcement but never before linked to any specific crime. With this new lead, Perry's investigation kicked into high gear. She delved into Morgan's background, tracing his movements in the days leading up to Gloria's accident. Surveillance footage from a gas station near the crash site showed an SUV matching the description of Morgan's vehicle. As the pieces began to fall into place, Perry felt the familiar rush of a case breaking open, but she knew that connecting the dots between a notorious hitman a wealthy real estate mogul, and the young woman fighting for her life in the hospital would require more than circumstantial evidence. She needed hard proof, and she needed Gloria to wake up and tell her side of the story. The breakthrough in the case came 3 weeks after the crash, when Gloria Rose finally emerged from her coma. Detective Perry was at her bedside within hours, gently coaxing out the young woman's recollections of that fateful night. Gloria's testimony proved to be the missing piece of the puzzle. She remembered the black SUV following her, the deliberate collision that sent her car over the edge. Armed with Gloria's statement, Perry moved swiftly. A warrant was issued for Drake Morgan's arrest, and a SWAT team apprehended him at a safe house in the desert. Under intense interrogation, Morgan finally cracked, revealing the details of his arrangement with Robert Young. Morgan's confession led to a raid on Robert's mansion. There, hidden in a secret safe, detectives found damning evidence. Detailed plans of Gloria's route the night of the crash, correspondence with Morgan, and financial records of the payment for the hit. Robert was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Drake Morgan, in exchange for his testimony, received a reduced sentence of 25 years. Gloria, still recovering from her injuries, found solace in Victor's unwavering support and the knowledge that justice had been served. The case of Gloria Rose serves as a stark reminder of the need to stay vigilant in relationships. What began as a seemingly perfect fairy tale filled with wealth and success quickly spiraled into a controlling and possessive nightmare. When freedom and respect are compromised, the consequences can be devastating. Don't let material gifts or glamour overshadow your sense of independence and self-worth. The key takeaway here is that any healthy relationship requires balance and mutual respect. If you start to feel dominated or pressured, it could signal deeper problems. Always prioritize your independence and watch for signs of control. If this story resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this.